6 villagers, a witch finder summoned to help, and one clear objective: a witch must hang on the 5th dawn. To begin, I would like to introduce everybody to the villagers real quick. The first, Blacksmith Oswin. When greeting him for the first time, he says, "Ho there, witch finder." We respond with, "Good morrow, smithy." And then Oswin says to us, It was me that sent for ye. That damned shepherd has cursed my jaw to fall loose, though I strapped and welded it back on. Make sure to give that cursing witch the short drop." Oswin makes mention to a shepherd, and we'll get to her in a little bit, but for now we can ask Oswin who else is in the town. When we inquire about this, he tells us, "Ye mean beside that blasted shepherd?" We respond by saying, "Yes, who else?" And Oswin says, "Well, there's the old priest, Father Usby, in yon kirk. Then there's that fishing fella hanging out by Bothwell's bridge. He's alright like. And that saucy wee bit out by Fairy Circle. Can nae forget about that doolally old crone, bides by the woods and a'." Since Oswin is hell-bent on thinking that the shepherd is the witch, we'll go talk to her first and get her side of the story. When talking to the shepherd for the first time, she will say, "Witchfinder, ye see the curse that has been laid upon me. That vile blacksmith sent his wolf familiar to slaughter my sheep. I demand retribution." We can then press her on this claim by giving insight. We say, "Oswin claims ye have cursed his jaw to fall off." And the shepherd, whose name is Violet, will say, "Lies. Most likely he did that to himself in one of his failed experiments." We'll talk to the blacksmith about these claims in a second. But first, let's go talk to the rest of the villagers. When we go to talk to the priest, Father Usby, he will say, "Bid ye welcome, witch finder. God be here. To what reason does our wee village owe the pleasure of this visit? I'm summoned to tend to a wolf in your flock, Father." Father Usby will then say, "A wolf in my flock, you say? Vexing news indeed. If ye may make use of me in your hunt, then pray let it be known. When you will, I am ready." If we ask the priest who all resides in the village, he will give us some context to a few people. Firstly, he'll mention that the blacksmith's wife is dead, or as he describes it, "The blacksmith's wife sleeps in my garden. Fever took her this winter." Immediately following that, he will say that the shepherd's husband fled, leaving unpaid debts, the wretch. But then he makes a remark about somebody who he describes as the ungodly whore by the ring of stones. "My, ye are the charming devil like. What ails ye, sire?" Well, women scare me, and women who compliment me scare me even more, so, you're the witch. "There is naught my herbs and roots can nae cure, taught by my own dear mother." We can ask the woman who the priest refers to as an ungodly whore, whose name is actually Maiden Lilith, "Have ye ever communed with Satan?" To which she will say, "Me, sire, not I. I wouldn't even know how." When we tell her the priest claims he spied you dancing with black shadows at night, she will say, "I've danced with nae shadows, sir. Since my love has gone missing, I've seen rare reason to dance at all. But strange that Father Usby should be slinking round here at night, didn't ye think?" And I do think that she has a point, so we'll investigate that later. For now, let's meet the final 2 people in the village. First up, we have Fisherman Fearin, who says, "Me a witch, eh? Not but tall tales, ye daft wee zealot. Find ye nae witches here, just simple folk working the land." We can ask him what his business is here, and he says, "Besides catching o' these wee fishes, my business is my ain." We then say, at one word, "Tread carefully, fisherman," to which he says, "As ye like, sir." We can then ask if he spied any queer thing of late, and he says, "Truly life itself be gay strange when ye ponder it. A simple man with simple words, and no more." And finally, over in the woods, we can find old crone Griselda. When we talk to her, she says, "What kind of gobshite are ye to be trespassing in my woods?" This village is full of witches, and I'll curse ye and all. A curse of boils on your filthy member, and maggots in your arse. We say, bid your tongue, woman, or I shall remove it from your head. Griselda will then laugh at us and say, and just what would ye be wanting with me tongue, eh? You dirty wee pervert. Absolutely not gets by old Griselda. All souls in this village has shared their kip with Satan. Take your pick. Now let's return to the feud between Oswin and Violet. When returning to Oswin, we can talk to him again, and he will say, the shepherd cursed me, for she says the fence I built her was nae good. She blames me for the wolves that got her sheep, but the fence is fine. Nae doubt she left the gate open, and then she cursed me for my jaw to fall off. We tell him then that Violet claims he sent a wolf to her door, to which he responds, that lying witch. There's nae truth in a claim like that. We can also ask Oswin if he had ever done work for Violet before. What he will tell us is essentially that he hasn't, but he's done work for her husband before he had left. But interestingly, he also claims that her husband still owes him money. Returning to talk to Violet, she will say, why do ye tarry here while that blacksmith is still breathing? I spied him yapping to his familiars, a slack-jawed raven and a grey wolf. He sent the black wolf here to slaughter my sheep, for I refused to pay him for his feeble disaster of a fence he erected. At this point, Violet and Oswin stop willingly giving up new information, so we have to force it out of them. Why is it ye torture me when I tell ye it is the blacksmith ye want? He is a fork-tongued liar and the witch that plagues our land. A foul buzzard who has given his jaw to Lucifer in exchange for the death of my sheep to try and drive me fae this place. That's all she decided to tell us. But that's not good enough. I can take little more of this torture. I admit I made lies about the blacksmith. I have seen him talking to nae raven or wolf. I forgot to close the gate, and the death of my sheep are naught but my own stupidity and carelessness. Perhaps that old fisherman is the witch ye seek, appears as more beast than man. I would not be surprised if he was the one who ate my sheep. At the end of each day, we'll get a sort of premonition or dream sequence. I'll talk about these later because I think they're more interesting the further and further into the game you get. What's funny about this is that the next day, if we immediately torture Violet, she'll confess. I confess to being the witch. Please torture me nae more. I slaughtered my own sheep in sacrifice to the devil himself. It was a curse to drop that flapping jaw from the blacksmith and end his insufferable yapping. Hang me now so I may be rid of this awful place. And while we won't hang her just yet, we will go torture Oswin now. Turn your tortures away from me and hang that shepherd witch. May she curse your jaw to fall off and on, and don't come greeting to me to weld it back on. Ye must have seen that wee lamb's head she severed at my doorstep, and queer symbols in the poor wee thing's blood smeared all over my door. The conversation that follows these comments is quite odd. If we tell Oswin, I saw blood upon the doorstep, but no head, he will respond and say, believe me I say true. Come to think of it, I've seen them same symbols out by the old woods. After that though, we can tell him of the shepherd's confession, to which he says, Christ's sake then man, what are ye still doing here? We respond by saying, if nothing else, I'm extremely thorough. Oswin will then say, that's one word for what ye are, that's right. And we don't take too kindly to that, so we torture him again. But after being tortured for a second time, Oswin then tells us, alright, I admit the fence I sold her was nae my best work, but that doesn't change her of being a witch. We say, nor does it prove it, and he will say, hang the damned shepherd, lest ye doom us all. But we're finally getting somewhere with Oswin, so instead of hanging the witch, we torture him again. Oswin will tell us after this torture, I confess, please nay more torture. When the shepherd would nay pay me for my work, I stoked up Lucifer himself for my fires and set the wolves of hell upon her sheep. We can ask him who else was in your covet. He will then say, damn ye, just hang me now and end my suffering, and hang that shepherd in awe, for she is the most cursed witch I've ever known. We can also ask him, so then you freely admit to witchcraft, and he will give the same response. Now we have quite the predicament. Both Oswin and Violet, based off of their own words, are witches, and in reality we should hang both of them. But, as our character says, if nothing else, we're very thorough. So before we get to any of that, let's go talk to some of the other villagers. To recap our initial interactions with Father Usby and Maiden Lilith, Father Usby will greet us, and then whenever we ask who all else is in the village, he will make mention to Maiden Lilith, calling her a whore and saying that she dances with black shadows. When confronted about this, Maiden Lilith will deny it and then throw accusations back to Father Usby about why he would be slinking around her place at night, and this is where we will pick up with their dialogue. Witchfinder, for one hunting devils ye are spending far too much time searching in the house of our Lord. I believe vermin rush to shadows, not bask in holy light. Tarry here nay longer. We will respond to that by saying, I exclude none from my search. And Father Usby will say, do not test me, Witchfinder. I am a man o' the cloth. That whore by the ring of stones is the witch, for she has slain 3 babes no less. We also have the option to say, there are others who would say differently, and when we say this, Father Usby will say, which of these wretches dares speak ill of me? The very same you would point the finger at. After that response, Father Usby gives his same dialogue. Do not test me, Witchfinder, I am a man of the cloth. My mother is gone, but I carry on her healing arts in her stead. There is nay soul here who has not taken my healing, except perhaps the priest, who does keek at me with strange glances. I know he does not approve of my young love Gavin. We respond to this by saying, pray tell me who is this young love you speak of. My sweet Gavin, a stable hand fae the next village o'er. We'd been courting a couple of years now while he saved enough to do right by me. Ye have nae seen him on your way into the village, have ye? We respond, no wench, I have not seen him. Oh. Please, sire, there is nae witchcraft in these healing herbs. We ask Lilith to inform us then what is of them. She says, not untowards, just a wee bit of lavender, some rosemary, and lady's bed straw. That priest sent ye here, did he not? He did. I would rare speak ill of another fae this village, but I feel he is a shadow looming over us all. His slimy tendrils take grasp us tight, a real beast in sheep's skin. Have mercy, or may Azrael strike ye down. Why do ye molest me so while that whore still walks free? I've seen her taking newborn babes out to that pagan spiral. I pray she takes the short drop. We say, your mind seems fixed upon this maiden. What is she to you? Not a maiden, naught but a blaspheming pagan harlot. Going back to Maiden Lilith, we say, Usby claims you have taken newborn babes out to this spiral. She says to us, would that it were true, tears now streaming down her face. Gavin and I almost had a wee one of our own, but Father Usby says it was an abomination on account of us nae being hand fasting. You'll no tell Gavin if ye see him, will ye? When my love returns, ye will regret the hands ye laid upon me. I tell ye, the evil that besets this village is in the grasp of the priest. I've seen him dancing a jig with imps in that kirk of his, making merriment and cavorting with all manner of beasts. We ask, when have ye seen this? And Lilith says, oh, all the time, sir. I'm sure he is the witch ye seek. Or perchance that mad old crone in the woods. Men who walk in there never tay return. She says she turned them into the trees. My love entered they woods, and his nay returned. I ken she has turned him to a tree. Ye are my confessor. I admit I am the witch, and I did try to end that vile priest at the behest of my master. Finally slipped a wee bit cursed belladonna in his wine. Retribution for the way his tendril hands groped me as a bairn, and the looks he still gives me now. We respond to this by saying, foul witch, who else is in your coven? She responds, old Griselda helped me. She may be bound for Bedlam, but she kens where to find belladonna in the woods. She be the grand high witch, turns men to trees and all. Now, if we torture the priest again, nothing really comes out of it. But if we torture him once more after that, he will say, I admit, I was tempted and did covet relations with that whore temptress. A black goat did appear to me, and I begged it to let me bed with that supple maiden. She should be mine. At least her lover will no return. I've seen to that. I have planted his skull at the roots of an old ash tree. Let me just enjoy this last tipple of wine before my end. Now, regardless of what you choose here, it doesn't really seem to make a difference. If you tell him about the poison, he won't drink it, but if you don't tell him about the poison, he will drink it. But he doesn't die from it, so I can only assume that it's probably just a lie. And now everything becomes even more confusing. 4 people have admitted to being a witch. Well, 5. I suppose, just for the sake of putting it here, we'll go over what old Griselda has to say for herself. I am the witch, and I curse ye again. I think that about wraps up old Griselda's case, so we now have 5 people confessing to being a witch. But what about the 6th person in the village? The fisherman. What does he have to say? Are ye still at that witch business? I can hardly confess 'tis something I ain't. Can nae ye see this pursuit is in folly? Find ye nae witches here, or anywhere for that matter. Ye have broken and beaten me. Can I no convince ye? Do ye take some wretched pleasure fae our suffering? I am no witch. Ye will have the truths ye wish to hear, but no fae me. Find ye nae witches here, only your own wretched soul that has made pact with the devils and demons. A blackened beggar, a leech upon the land, trading torment for gold. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what the hell just happened? And to summarize, we were summoned to a village to look for a witch, and it ended up being that 5 people, including the man who initially summoned us, were all witches, as they say. The quote-unquote only person who was not a witch was the fisherman, and the only reason he wasn't deemed a witch is because he never admits to it. Yet, despite this fact, you can still hang him. And if we can hang the fisherman, even though he never admits to being a witch and in fact denies that there are any witches in the village, what about the other 5 people? The 5 people who all outright admitted to being witches. Are they really witches, and should we have hung anybody at all? The answer to the first question is an obvious no. Everybody only admitted to being a witch whenever they were tortured beyond what they could handle. And something I want to go over too is the premonitions, because the premonition sequences seem to serve as a hint to who might be the witch, but they change. Every single one of the premonitions will change based on who you talk to last, who's being accused, and whatnot. It seems to me that us as the witch finder are insanely biased. Biased towards new information and developments that happened right before we went to bed. And sometimes even the dialogue will prove that we have this bias. The main piece of dialogue that proves this bias is something that I went over, but I didn't show you our response to it. When Fisherman Fearin says, "Ye have broken and beaten me, can I no convince ye? Do ye take some wretched pleasure fae our suffering? I am no witch." And we respond to that, "God grant it, I will have your confession." And what's funny about this, other than the fact that we tell somebody that we will have their confession one way or another essentially, is that there are no premonitions about Fisherman Fearin. There are people who accuse him throughout the game, but nobody has any reason to do so. They all do so on the grounds of the way he looks. Obviously, this isn't solid evidence, and again, despite the fact that he never confesses, we can still hang him. We still get paid, and somebody dies. But speaking of somebody dying, the second question that needs to be answered: should we have hung anybody in the village? And for me personally, I think the answer is yes. Not Shepherd Violet. The worst thing she did was leave her gate open and her sheep got eaten. Not the blacksmith. Something just happened to his jaw and he's blaming witchcraft. He's just delusional. The old crone. She's just a delusional old crone. Fisherman Fearin is probably the best character in the story. And the woman by the Ring of Stones, I don't see a reason for her to deserve it. Now, however, the priest, I think he has some justification for being hung. Despite everything that's been lied about in this story, I think 2 statements hold truth to them. First Maiden Lilith says, "Finally slipped a wee bit of cursed belladonna in his wine. Retribution for the way his tendril hands groped me as a bairn, and the looks he still gives me now." And then Father Usby later says, "I was tempted and did covet relations with that whore temptress. A black goat did appear to me, and I begged it to let me bed that supple maiden. She should be mine. And finally, at least her lover will no return. I've seen to that. I have planted his skull at the roots of an old ash tree." And with that, we come to the end of this video. Before I go though, I just want to thank you all for the love and support you've been showing me. It seems as though every video that I post does better and better, and it makes me happy to see that people are enjoying what I'm doing. It means the world to me, and I can't thank you all enough for it. I have plenty more videos coming in the future, so if you want to see those, be sure to subscribe and leave a like, comment, all that good stuff. It really does help, and it really means the most to me. And as a final note, I'll have the Steam link to the game in the description in case you want to go check it out. And with all of that being said, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I hope you have a nice night and sweet dreams.